Hi class, today I just wanted to give you a post on the concept of metacognition. Metacognition is something that really you guys should probably be taught as freshmen in college or first years in college. And really you probably should have, had walking in the door more. I never did. I don't even know that I understood what metacognition was, until more recently. And in part of this is because it hasn't really been studied much, but there is new neuroscientific evidence and, various psychological assays and investigations that have explored concepts of metacognition. So this is what I wanted to talk about today, best practices of it, and how it can help you, become a better learner. So, simply put, metacognition is the study of how we learn and how we learn well. We know several things now. For example, that, you cannot really attend to things well for an hour and 15 minutes at a time. That's one reason that, our traditional lecture approaches aren't, they just don't make very much sense, and instead you're better off receiving the content in chunked 15-20 minute segments, which is why I try to cut each of our segments at about 20 minutes max and try to keep them even shorter. About 10 or 15 minutes I think is ideal. So being able to pay attention is the basis of cognition, and if you are not paying attention, you are not learning. Secondly, we know that it is important to, approach the material with a somewhat calm mind. Meditating, exercising, these sorts of things before you study is a very good idea. Studying when you are exhausted is not a good idea. I remember cramming, in college. My buddies and I used to, have rooms and do these late night study marathons. And things were crazy. They were crazy fun. It was a lot more like a party than it was a studying experience. I wouldn't recommend it if you want to do well in school. Another one is how you actually study. Passively studying, many studies show, is a waste of time. Basically a waste of time. Just if you are studying by passively reading the book and listening to my lecture slides in voiced over PowerPoints only, you are, not doing well. How you need to study, I think the best practice in this particular course is first seeing how I test you from the learning objectives. Go into the weekly objective. Look at what the learning objectives are. Then review the material, review the content, maybe passively first, and that's okay. But then you have to do more. So, you review the content, and then you go back to the learning objectives, and can you explain those learning objectives? Maybe you think you can. You're telling yourself you can. Then try to do it out loud. Try to teach it to somebody, and then see if you're satisfied with how you actually sound. It's just we have this built-in sort of, sense of ego that we know things really well, and then we actually try to explain them, and it turns out that we don't know them quite as well as we do. And oftentimes students don't realize this until they actually get to the test. So, try it first. Try, and then actually explaining it is what really helps you consolidate it and learn to associate it with other things that you already have in your brain, and that helps you remember it. Again, this is an active process, and you don't have to have another person there to teach it to them. But I do find, at least for me, that it helps to do this out loud. And this is especially true when you're writing papers as well. You write a paper, you get to the point that you are just reading the whole thing over and over again, and your brain fills in the crappy parts for you. So, you could be missing a word completely, and your brain just inserts that in and fixes the problem, especially when you're used to it and you go through it over and over and over again. The same way with vision. I mean, like you have an issue, in the visual field. Your brain will sometimes fix this. This is also the basis of illusions. These are sort of tricks, to catch the brain fixing these problems. And again, anyway, we won't get into too much what is reality, but again, it all comes from the mind. It's, you have your own perception of reality. Sort of like the fine focus of a lens at the optometrist office. And, everybody has theirs tuned ever so slightly based off of experience and association. But if you want what you learn in college to be part of that association that is your reality as you proceed in life, how you do that, how you etch that in there, is to build it into current associations. And the way to do that is to try to explain and teach the material actively, out loud, either to a stuffed animal or the wall, but regardless, if you just do this inside your head, that is one step better than just reading the textbook and the material, which is almost a waste of time. But then if you're just reflecting on this in your mind, you're going to convince yourself that you know it quite well. You have to hear the words come out of your mouth. You have to see the words written on the whiteboard. Another thing that I used to do that was quite effective is I used to find whiteboards and sort of, teach the material off of the whiteboard, basically to an empty room. The combination of reading and writing, diagrams helped a lot too. Can I diagram it out in some way that makes sense? That's how you're going to remember the material. That is metacognition. That is what metacognition teaches us to do. Actively learn. Find ways to pay attention. Go in there with a clear mind. These things, otherwise, you might as well not even be wasting your time studying. You're probably wasting more hours studying inefficiently. You could be very efficient by embracing concepts of metacognition in your studying. With that, good luck with the rest of your exam and the rest of your classes.